Hey guys, welcome to our mobile mouse instructional tutorial on conditional formatting using formulas. In the previous video, Excel 113, we basically showed you how to compare data using VLOOKUP. So what we'll do here to begin with is we'll look to sort of highlight or emphasize cells that basically are either missing or there's a discrepancy. And then we'll extend it onto some other examples of conditional formatting with formulas. So when you're ready, we'll get started. So in this example, we'll basically start off by selecting the cells that are going to be conditionally formatted. In this case, we'll just simply use column H. So starting on cell H6, Control-Shift down arrow to select those cells, assuming that there's no blanks. Now, what we'll look to do very simply is on the Home tab under the Conditional Formatting button, we'll simply go down to New Rule, and then we'll choose Use a Formula to determine which cells to format. So this will be pretty simple in the sense that we want to look at column H, and basically anything that is not a zero, we want to emphasize that, perhaps shaded red. So to do this, beginning with the formula equals, now what we'll do, we'll start off by clicking on cell H6, the first cell that could potentially have a difference. But what we'll do here is we'll press F4 and F4, and by pressing that twice we're actually able to cycle through, and what we're doing here is we're saying absolute column H and relative reference to row 6. So basically keep focused on column H but look up and down row 6. You could actually, in this case, because of the selection, you could also simply just reference cell H6. Right, so what we'll do here, we'll say if any value in H6, moving down the list in the selection, is not equals to 0, if that's the case, then very simply format, and we'll do a fill. Let's say we did red, and we did a font of white, and then we'll click OK, and then OK. And notice how that emphasizes to a greater degree things that are missing or that have a discrepancy from another list. Right, so when you're ready, we'll look to move on to another example. In Excel 101, basically what we did is we showed you how to build a very simple little bar chart using the rect function in Microsoft Excel. So what we'd like to do here is show you how you could potentially conditionally format these little bar charts with different colors based on the percentage over in column G. So basically formatting data in column H where the value, or based on the value in column G. So once again, we'll start off by selecting the cells to potentially conditionally format, and we'll navigate to conditional formatting, and we'll go to New Rule. We'll then go to Use a Formula to determine which cells to format. So in the first one, let's just make it quite simple in that what we'll do is we'll basically take the highest value, format that a certain color, take the lowest value, format that a certain color. Right, also just bear in mind again that the rep function is based on text values, so what's actually in here are text values. Right, so if we go equals, and let's start off with a reference to cell, let's say G5, and again we'll F4 to cycle through the absolute options. Right, now what we can do over here is we can say if cell G5, beg your pardon, G5 is equals to the max of, and again we'll just reference the same set of cells for that column. Where that is true, basically we'll go to format, and what we'll look to do is possibly set the font to be a shade of green, and then we'll hit OK, and we'll hit OK again. And you'll notice, of course, how that now conditionally formats the highest value. So visiting conditional formatting again, and we'll go New Rule yet again. We'll use a formula to determine which cells to format. In this case, let's do the lowest value, and that, of course, is done with the min function. So start off again by referencing cell G5, and we'll F4 to cycle through our absolute references. What we'll then do is we'll look to say if it is equals to the minimum of the values in column G. If that is true, what we'll look to do is we'll go format, and we'll set the color to possibly be red. Then we'll go OK and OK. Now what we'll do now is basically sort of like a progressive scale where the second largest, third largest, fourth largest, second smallest, and so on. Now to do this, you're going to have to make use of either the small function or the large function in Microsoft Excel. So we'll give you an example of each, and I think from there you'll be able to figure out the rest. So with these cells again selected, conditional formatting, and again New Rule. So we'll use a formula to determine which cells to format, and basically we'll start off again with equals, and we'll reference cell G5, and we'll F4 to cycle through the absolute references. So we'll say here, if cell G5 is equals to, let's say, large, and again what we'll do is we'll select the same cells in column G, large, comma 2, meaning the second largest. Now obviously if you wanted the third largest number, it would be comma 3, fourth largest, comma 4, and so on. So hitting the format button for the font, let's look to perhaps set that at a slightly lighter shade of green, and then we'll go OK. Right, so what we'll do while we're here, we'll select this formula over here and we'll simply copy that because it's going to be very similar. The next one's going to be very similar in this respect, and we'll hit OK. Conditional formatting, new rule, and use a formula to determine which cells to format. In this instance, we'll simply change large to small, and what that would allow us to do is to take, in this instance, small for column G, the second smallest value. So we'll go format, we'll find the color in this case perhaps as a shade of orange, and then we'll hit OK. So basically what I've done here is I've just gone and completed the remaining functions using large 3, 4, and 5 respectively. If we were to click any one of these cells and on the Home tab navigate to Conditional Formatting and simply Manage Rules, you'll notice I've got a sequence of rules here. So for example, the sort of darker brown color being this one over here, and just having a look at the formula in place. Right, so when you guys are ready, we'll then look to proceed on to another example. We'll do some conditional formatting based upon dates, but we'll also look to show you how to color code an entire row. Hey guys, so in this next example, what we'll look to do is basically, we've got a list here where what we want to do is we're going to do some date-based conditional formatting. So for example, if a review date is, let's say, overdue, and what would make it overdue, of course, is the fact that it hasn't been marked as complete, X indicating complete, or if it's due in the next 7 days and not yet complete, we'll shade that whole entire row red. If something's due in the next fortnight and not marked as complete, we'll mark it a shade of orange. And if anything is due more than a fortnight from now, but within this month, we'll shade it a lighter shade of yellow. So progressively, as the dates get closer, what will happen is the conditional formatting will affect the entire row accordingly. So yeah, let's get started. So what we'll look to do is we'll start off by selecting the entire row now where the conditional formatting is going to kick in. And in this case, that actually means selecting the entire table except for the heading row. So what we'll look to do now again is we'll navigate up to conditional formatting and we'll simply again go new rule. And again, we'll be using a formula to determine which cells to format. So in the first example, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing the one where it's overdue or not marked as complete. So for this, you're going to have to utilize, actually for all three of these examples, you're going to have to utilize the AND function, the today function, and possibly the edate function, just as a variance in maybe the third example. So we'll start off again by going equals, and we're going to go and then we're going to open up the arguments. So for the first one, basically what we're going to do here is we're going to be referencing, in this case, the first review date. Now in this case, we definitely have to cycle through our absolute references where we'll be locking it on the column but not the row. So only focus on column F and then look up and down starting from row 6. So we're going to say where that is basically less than or equals to today's date plus 7, and then we're going to go into the second argument for and then we're going to say where cell D6, and again we need to cycle through our absolute references, is not equals to, and quotations X quotations close the arguments. Right, so for this format to work, basically both of these arguments have to be true. Right, so when we're ready, we're going to go in format, and what we'll do here is we'll simply go fill, we'll select a shade of red perhaps, font, and we'll color that white. When we're ready, we'll click OK, and we'll click OK. So just to point out in this first instance here how anything not marked as complete, but where the review date is either an older date or a date that's due in the next 7 days, gets shaded red. So let's say, for example, over here, this now was marked as complete. It no longer applies that conditional format. Right, so what we'll do again is we'll look to select the table yet again, starting from row 6, A6 down to F26 in this example. And the next one we'll do is we'll say if it's due in the next fortnight, and then color that maybe a shade of orange. So again, conditional formatting, and again, new rule, and use the formula to determine which cells to format. So once again, pressing equals, and the formula going to be used here is AND. Opening up the arguments for AND. So again, what we'll do is we'll reference cell F6 and we'll cycle through by pressing F4, absolute values. Right, I'm going to say, right, if it's greater than or equals to today's date, plus 8, right, and then we're going to jump into the next argument, and we're going to again reference cell F6, and we need to cycle through our absolute references, and we're going to say if that's less than or equals to today's date plus 14. Right, so these first two arguments of today plus 8 and today plus 14 should cover that range of a fortnight, basically, well, at least a week from a fortnight. So when we're ready, we're going to jump into the third argument by pressing comma, and we're now going to reference cell D6, and again we need to absolute reference that and cycle through. So we'll absolute column D, relative reference row 6, and we're going to say if that is not equals to, once again, completed as an X, close the brackets. Again, all three conditions have to be true for this formula to work. So we're going to go to format, and again what we'll do here is possibly we'll just go fill, and we'll set that at a shade of orange, and we'll go OK, and we'll go OK. So you'll notice dates that basically fall within that kind of range of greater than 7 days, less than 14, get shaded the slightly darker orange. All right. So with the next one, we'll just simply leave these cells selected, and we'll navigate to conditional formatting, and we'll go new rule, using a formula to determine which cells to format. So for this one, we'll set up a light shade of yellow for anything that is basically greater than today's date, but less than a month from now. So basically anything in the next month. And again, that's not marked as complete. So what we'll do again is we'll go format, and I'll beg your pardon. We'll do the format first, and we'll just say let's shade that a light shade of yellow. All right, and then we'll go OK. Let's actually do the formula now. So we go equals, and we're going to go yet again, and once again we need to reference cell F6, and we need to cycle through our absolute references. We're going to say if this is greater than or equals to today's date, right, comma, to get to the second argument of and again we'll reference cell F6, again cycling through by F4, the absolute reference options there, and then we're going to go less than or equals to, now for this one we're going to reference, we'll use a formula called eDate, and this is a months based formula. So for the first argument of eDate, we're going to simply go today, right, so from today's date, eDate, comma 1, closing the brackets for eDate. So basically what this formula says is if any value in column F starting with row 6 is greater than today's date, and then comma, anything in column F starting at row 6 is less than basically a month from today. Right. So what we'll then do is we now need to just specify whether it's completed or not by referencing cell D6, cycling through with F4, and then what we'll look to do say if it's not equals to complete, and then closing the brackets. Now we've already done the format, so we should just be able to click OK. Now noting how that didn't quite work the way we thought it would. So what we actually simply need to do is navigating to conditional formatting. We're going to go to manage rules, and simply all we need to do here is change the sequence in which the rules appear. When we're ready, we'll go OK, and notice how the conditional formatting applies correctly. So you just got to be aware, guys, that if you do have multiple conditions applied to cells, that you want to apply them in the correct order. Right, so guys, hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you got something out of this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sure do look forward to hearing from you guys sometime in the near future. Thanks for your time. Cheers for now.